All right, next. This isn't even the co-main event yet, and we're already at Yoel Romero versus Paulo Costa. And Yoel Romero is a guy who he just kind of like sits there, and he's real defensive, and his hands are up, and he's just kind of like moseying around the octagon, and then he explodes out of nowhere and knocks people dead. He's got an incredibly strong wrestling background. Came up if you listen to the Joe Rogan podcast that he did, he came up in like Cuba, in the Cuba wrestling program, and they would like base how much you got to eat off of how you were ranked in the camp or whatever. It was fucking nuts. So you're talking about a guy who has been like working tirelessly his whole life, for the duration of his life, since he was a little kid. And he's a silver medalist. He won a silver medal in 2000 or 2004, one of those 2 years, at the Sydney Olympics in freestyle. Supremely talented, genetic freak, and he's fighting another genetic freak in Paulo Costa, who, when I look at this fight, I understand the hype behind Paulo Costa, but this is one of those things where I just think it's too much too soon for him. It might not be. I might be wrong. He might go out there and knock Yoel out, but Yoel stays super defensive. I think it's going to be hard for Paulo to land on him. I think that Yoel is extremely powerful as well. He's got an incredible wrestling background, like I said. I mean, I just think that this is a lot for Paulo Costa to overcome. I like Yoel Romero. I mean, you're talking about a guy his 2 losses in the UFC have been against Robert Whittaker, who's the current champion at 185 pounds. I mean, that's it. He's got one more loss on his record, but I think it was like a Strikeforce fight. But other than that, he's beaten Chris Weidman, Luke Rockhold. Who else has he beaten? Derek Brunson, Brad Tavares, Tim Kennedy, Lyoto Machida. I mean, Jacare Souza. It's fucking his hit list is pretty impressive. And Paulo Costa's beat Johnny Hendricks, and then he beat Uriah Hall. And it's like, okay, don't get me wrong. Those are like, you caught Johnny Hendricks on the downward part of his career though. And Uriah Hall is one of those guys who can be, especially early in fights, can be very hesitant to pull the trigger on things. And Paulo Costa he's got 12 wins. 11 of them have come by knockout, 1 by way of submission. It's not like he can't win this fight. I'm not denying that he could catch Yoel Romero and knock him out. I just think that the skill set that Romero possesses is just going to be too much for him to overcome. It's a lot, man. I mean, you're talking about a guy who is super explosive. I think Yoel's like 42 years old, and how old is Costa? 28. But this is one of those matchups I look at and I go, okay, of course it's tempting, because if you look at Costa's career, I mean, yeah, he knocks everybody out, he finishes everybody, but I don't know, man. It would have made more sense to me to see him do it against like a more middle of the road guy first, like a David Branch or somebody, you know? I don't know. Someone who sits more in that like 7-8 spot at 185 pounds. This seems like a fucking handful. I think also part of the like marketing drive behind this fight is that they both look so good. Like they're both physically intimidating specimens, and I think that just if you look at the matchup when they're standing across from each other, you go, oh my God. But I really think that when the fight starts, you're going to see Yoel Romero's just entire skill set shine through.